I gave my sister the same support she gave me when I was broke, and now she won't speak to me. 5 years ago, I lost everything. My startup failed spectacularly. My apartment lease ended the same week, and I had $400 to my name. I called my sister, practically begging for help. Just a place to crash for a month while I found work. She lived in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with her husband, just the two of them rattling around in all that space. "I can't enable your poor choices," she said, her voice cold and measured. "You need to learn responsibility. You made your bed." She suggested I look into local shelters and actually sent me a link to Dave Ramsey's website. Financial discipline starts with accountability. That month, I slept in my 2004 Honda Civic through a brutal January, showering at Planet Fitness at 5 a.m., applying to jobs from the public library. I ate 1 meal a day, usually dollar menu items. My sister posted vacation photos from Cabo that same week, cocktails on the beach with captions about self-care and living your best life. I clawed my way back, took a soul-crushing sales job I hated, lived with 3 roommates in a basement apartment, saved every penny that didn't go to ramen and bus fare. Within 2 years, I'd paid off my debts. Within 4, I'd started a new company with a former colleague who believed in my vision. Last year, it sold for $2.3 million. My sister's husband left her 3 months ago, cleaned out their joint account and disappeared with his 24-year-old assistant. She lost the house in foreclosure, her car got repossessed, and she's drowning in credit card debt from trying to maintain appearances while her marriage crumbled. She called me crying at midnight. "I have nowhere to go. Mom and Dad won't help because they think I was stupid with money. And honestly, they're probably right." She paused, voice breaking. "You're my only option, please. I have a 5-bedroom house now, 3 guest rooms sitting empty with fresh sheets and furniture I've never used. I could write her a check for 6 months' rent without even checking my balance. Instead, I said, 'I can't enable your poor choices. You need to learn responsibility.' Then I texted her the exact same Dave Ramsey link she'd sent me 5 years ago. 'Are you serious right now?' She whispered. 'Dead serious. I learned so much sleeping in my Honda. Character building, really. You'll thank me later.' The line went completely quiet for 10 seconds. 'I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm your sister.' 'Neither could I said calmly. 'But here we are.' She hung up. Then came the texts. Novels about family, loyalty, and forgiveness, and how I'm different because I actually have money now. How she was just protecting her marriage back then, and her husband had opinions about freeloading relatives. How cruel I'm being when she's at her absolute lowest point. I haven't responded to a single message. Last week, Mom called. 'Your sister's living in an extended stay motel on Route 9. This is getting serious. You have the means to help her, and you're choosing not to.' 'So do you,' I replied. 'That's not the point,' Mom snapped. 'You're being vindictive and petty.' 'I'm being consistent,' I said. 'She taught me that family doesn't owe you anything when times get hard. I'm just honoring her philosophy.' This morning, my sister showed up at my house unannounced. She looked terrible. Dark circles, unwashed hair, wearing the same jacket I'd seen in her desperate selfies for days. My security camera caught her sitting in her beater car for 20 minutes, clearly gathering courage, before finally walking to my door. When I answered, she wasn't crying. She was angry. 'You know what the worst part is?' she said, voice shaking. I waited. 'The worst part is that I would have done the exact same thing if our positions were reversed today. 5 years later, I still wouldn't let you stay with me, even knowing what you went through, even seeing how you survived it. That caught me off guard. 'So why are you here?' I asked. 'Because I needed to tell you that you were right.' She laughed, but it was hollow. I was cruel. I was selfish. I told myself I was teaching you a lesson, but really I just didn't want my life inconvenienced. Trevor said you were a loser, and I agreed because it was easier than defending you. Trevor. Her ex-husband's name tasted bitter just hearing it. And now I'm living in a roach-infested room that costs $89 a night, and I can only afford it for another week. I'm applying to jobs I'm overqualified for, and getting rejected because I've been out of work for 3 years. I eat ramen for dinner. Real ramen, not the trendy restaurant kind I used to Instagram." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A dim room with water-stained walls, a bed that sagged in the middle, and a tiny microwave on a dresser. I shower at the truck stop down the road because the motel shower has black mold. I do my makeup in a bathroom that smells like diesel and urinal cakes. And every single day, I think about that month you spent in your car. I stayed silent. I used to drive past homeless people and think they must have made terrible decisions. That if they'd just worked harder, been smarter, been more responsible, they wouldn't be there. And now I'm 2 weeks away from being one of them. So you want my pity? No, she met my eyes. I want you to know that you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't owe me money or a place to stay or even this conversation. I came here to tell you that I finally understand what I did to you, and I'm sorry. She turned to leave. Wait, I said. She stopped but didn't turn around. Do you actually understand? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? She turned back and her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. I understand that when you called me that night 5 years ago, you weren't asking me to solve your problems. You were asking for basic human decency from your only sibling. You were asking me to remember that we grew up together, that we used to be close, that family should mean something when everything else falls apart. And I told you to figure it out yourself because it was inconvenient for me, because Trevor thought you were irresponsible, because I'd never struggled, so I couldn't imagine how bad it really was. I told myself I was helping you learn a lesson. She wiped her eyes roughly. But I wasn't teaching you anything. I was just being comfortable and cruel at the same time. And now I'm learning that same lesson in that disgusting motel room. And you know what? I don't feel like I'm growing as a person. I don't feel character building happening. I just feel scared and alone and like I'm drowning a little more each day. I leaned against my door frame. You texted me photos of Trevor's fancy birthday dinner the week I was sleeping in my car. Do you remember that? She closed her eyes. Yes. What was the caption? Blessed beyond measure, she whispered, with a gratitude hashtag. I saw that while I was parked outside a 24-hour diner, trying to stay warm, charging my phone so I could keep applying to jobs. I'd had half a stale bagel for breakfast, nothing for lunch. That photo made me so hungry I felt dizzy. I'm sorry. You commented on my Facebook post asking for help. Do you remember what you said? She nodded slowly. I said tough love is still love, and that you'd thank me someday when you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. 17 people liked that comment, including Mom. She flinched. So here's what I need to know, I said. Are you sorry because you're in the same position now? Or are you sorry because you actually understand that what you did was wrong, regardless of where either of us ended up? She thought about that for a long moment. Both, she said finally. I'm sorry because I'm experiencing exactly what I put you through, and it's hell. But I'm also sorry because even if I'd never lost everything, even if Trevor and I were still together and happy, what I did to you was inexcusable. I just wouldn't have realized it without this happening to me. At least you're honest. It's all I have left. We stood there in the morning sun, 2 sisters who used to build blanket forts and share secrets, now strangers connected only by blood and bitterness. I'm not going to give you money, I said. I know. I'm not going to let you stay here. I understand. But I'm going to do something else. She looked up, confused. I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me, a Dave Ramsey link and the address to the nearest shelter, and then I'm going to watch what you do with it. Because you were right about one thing. I did learn something from that experience. I learned who I was when everything was stripped away. I learned what I was capable of when I had nothing but myself to rely on. I pulled out my phone and texted her the same shelter information she'd sent me 5 years ago. You think you're going to be homeless in 2 weeks. You're probably right. So you have 2 weeks to figure out who you are when you have nothing. 2 weeks to learn what I learned in that Honda. This is cruel, she said quietly. No, I replied. This is fair. Cruel was letting your sister freeze in her car while you sipped margaritas in Mexico. Fair is giving you the exact same chance you gave me. She looked at her phone, at the shelter address, at the Dave Ramsey link. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not as strong as you? Then you'll learn that too. She stood there for another minute, then walked back to her car. I watched her sit in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Then she started the engine and drove away. Mom called 10 minutes later. Your sister just called me crying. What did you say to her? The truth. She said you're making her be homeless, that you could help her but you're choosing to let her suffer. She made me be homeless, I said. I could have not suffered, but she chose to let me. That was different. How? You were young. You could bounce back. She's older now, more fragile. This is going to break her. Then maybe she shouldn't have broken me first. I didn't raise you to be this cold, Mom said. You raised me to learn from my experiences. I'm just applying the lessons my sister taught me. She hung up without saying goodbye. The next 2 weeks were quiet. No calls from my sister. No visits. Mom stopped reaching out after I refused to engage with her guilt trips. Dad never called. He'd agreed with my sister 5 years ago that I needed to learn responsibility, so at least he was consistent now. I went about my life, worked on my new business venture, had dinner with friends, went to the gym, bought groceries without checking prices, lived in the house my sister had refused to share. On day 14, my doorbell rang at 6 in the morning. My sister stood there in the same clothes, but something was different. She looked clean. Her hair was washed. Her eyes were clear. I got a job, she said. Okay. It's at a call center. $10 an hour. I start Monday. Good for you. I'm staying at the women's shelter on Oakmont. I have a cot in a room with 5 other women. One of them snores so loud I barely sleep. The bathroom has 1 shower for 20 people, but it's warm and it's safe, and I'm grateful for it. I waited. I applied to 53 jobs in 2 weeks. I got rejected from 52 of them. The call center was the only place that gave me a chance. It's humiliating work for someone with my resume, but it's work. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know I'm doing it. I'm not asking Mom and Dad for money. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm doing exactly what you had to do. And it's the worst thing I've ever experienced, which means I'm finally understanding what I put you through. Every night at that shelter, I lie awake thinking about how you did this in January. In your car, alone, while I was sipping cocktails and posting about being blessed. She wiped her eyes. I want you to know that I get it now. And I'm so sorry. Not because I want something from you, just because you deserve to hear it. I nodded. Okay, that's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I don't know. That you forgive me? That we can start over? That eventually we can be sisters again? I don't know if we can, I said honestly. 5 years ago, I learned that family is just a word unless people choose to make it mean something. You taught me that when things get hard, I'm on my own. I can't unlearn that. So we're done? Forever? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I'm not going to pretend that your apology fixes 5 years of knowing my sister didn't care if I lived or died, as long as her life stayed comfortable. She nodded slowly. That's fair. You should go. You don't want to be late for your first day. It's not until Monday. Then you should go prepare. She turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, you were the strongest person I knew 5 years ago, and I should have told you that instead of judging you, and you're still the strongest person I know now. After she left, I made coffee and sat in my living room, looking at all the space I had. 3 empty guest rooms, a home office I barely used, a basement that was just storage. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister. Thank you for not making this easy. I didn't deserve easy. I deserved exactly what you gave me. I didn't respond. 3 months passed. My sister texted occasionally with updates. She'd moved from the shelter to a room in someone's basement. She was taking extra shifts. She'd applied for 3 better jobs and got rejected from all of them. She never asked for anything, never hinted that I should help, just kept me updated like she was checking in with a distant acquaintance. Then one night she called. "I need to tell you something," she said. "What?" "Trevor contacted me. He wants to reconcile. He says leaving was a mistake, that the girl was just a phase, that he wants to work things out. And he offered to pay off my debts. All of them. Get me back on my feet. Let me move back into a house he bought. Not the one we lost, but a new one. He says we can start fresh." What did you say? I told him to go to hell. I sat up straighter. Because here's what I realized while I was lying in that shelter cot, listening to 5 women snore and cry and pray. I was miserable in my old life too. I just had expensive things to distract me from it. Trevor controlled every dollar, every decision, every moment of my day. I couldn't work because he said it made him look bad. I couldn't have friends he didn't approve of. I couldn't even decorate my own house without his permission. She paused. I thought losing everything meant losing my life. But actually, losing everything meant finally being free. For the first time since I married him, I make my own choices. They're small choices. What shift to work, what room to rent, what to eat for dinner. But they're mine. That's good, I said carefully. I called to tell you that I understand now why you built everything back yourself, why you didn't take shortcuts, why you worked those terrible jobs instead of finding some rich boyfriend to solve your problems. It's not just about the money. It's about knowing you did it yourself. Took you long enough to figure that out. I'm a slow learner, she said. Always have been. We talked for another hour. Really talked, for the first time in 5 years. She told me about the women at the shelter, the ones who'd become unexpected friends, the single mother working 3 jobs, the college student who'd been kicked out for being gay, the elderly woman whose social security wasn't enough to cover rent. They're all just like me, she said. Normal people who got knocked down. Some made mistakes. Some just had bad luck. But none of them deserved to suffer. And neither did you. No, I agreed. I didn't. I wish I'd understood that 5 years ago. Me too. 6 months after that first visit, my sister called with news. She'd been promoted to supervisor at the call center. She was making $50 an hour now. She'd moved into a studio apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. "I'm taking you to dinner," she said. "Nothing expensive, just Olive Garden. But I want to take you out and say thank you." "For what?" "For giving me exactly what I needed, even though it wasn't what I wanted." We met at the Olive Garden on Thursday night. She looked different. Thinner from irregular meals and stress, but somehow healthier. Like she'd shed something toxic along with her comfortable life. "I've been thinking," she said over breadsticks, "about that night I called you crying, about what would have happened if you'd just given me money." "What about it?" "I would have taken your money, gotten back on my feet, and learned absolutely nothing. I would have gone right back to judging people for being poor, assuming they just needed to work harder. I would have stayed the same terrible person I was." She broke a breadstick in half. "But you didn't let me. You made me live through what you lived through. And now I'm different. I sponsor a woman at the shelter. I volunteer serving meals on weekends. I actually understand what it means to struggle, and I'm grateful for that, even though it was hell." "You're welcome," I said. "Are we okay? I mean, really okay?" I thought about that. About 5 years of hurt and anger. About that Honda Civic and those freezing nights. About her photos from Cabo and her comments about tough love. "We're getting there," I said finally. "But it's going to take time." "I have time," she said. "I'll wait as long as you need." 1 year after my sister showed up at my door, we had Sunday brunch together. It was her idea, and she paid. Not because she had to prove anything, but because she wanted to. She'd been promoted again. She was making $20 an hour now and had started taking online classes toward a degree in social work. She wanted to help people like the women she'd met at the shelter. "I've been thinking about having you over to my apartment," she said. "It's tiny and the neighbors are loud, but it's mine. I want you to see it." "I'd like that." "I mean it though. It's really small, like 400 square feet. Your closet is probably bigger." "I don't care about the size." She smiled. 5 years ago, I would have been mortified to have you see where I lived. I would have made excuses, but now I'm proud of it. I earned every square foot of that space myself." "Good," I said. "You should be proud." Mom joined us for brunch the next month. It was awkward at first. She'd sided with my sister 5 years ago and stayed silent during my homelessness. She'd called me vindictive when I refused to help my sister. Now she didn't seem to know where she stood. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "Both of you, actually. I failed you both in different ways." We waited. "I told myself that not helping you 5 years ago was teaching you responsibility," she said to me. "But really I was just uncomfortable watching you struggle. So I convinced myself you needed to figure it out alone. And when your sister needed help, I judged her for getting into that position instead of offering support." "Why didn't you help either of us?" my sister asked. Mom looked down at her plate. "Because your father and I had our own financial problems we weren't telling anyone about. We'd overspent for years, trying to look successful. When you needed help, we couldn't afford it without admitting we were broke too. That explained a lot." "We're okay now," Mom continued. "We sold the big house, downsized, paid off our debts, but by the time we could have helped, you'd both already made it through the worst of it without us." "So what now?" I asked. "Now I'm trying to be the mother I should have been before. Better late than never, I suppose." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still wounds, still complicated feelings, but it was honest, which was more than we'd had in years. 2 years after that morning, my sister showed up angry at my door. We were sitting in my living room on Christmas Eve. She'd brought homemade cookies, not fancy ones, just simple chocolate chip made in her tiny apartment kitchen. Remember when we used to make these with Grandma? She asked, before she died? Yeah, we'd fight over who got to lick the spoon. You always won because you were older. She laughed. And now you're richer and more successful. Funny how things change. You're not doing too bad yourself. Didn't you say you got accepted into that graduate program? Full scholarship, she said proudly. For my MSW, I start in January. That's incredible. It's weird. 2 years ago, I was drowning. Now I'm going back to school to help other people who are drowning. Life's strange like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you finally forgive me? I know we're okay now, but when did you decide to let it go? I thought about that. I don't know if I decided exactly. It just happened gradually. Every time you updated me, every time you chose to keep struggling instead of taking the easy way out, every time you showed up and didn't ask for anything, you weren't just apologizing with words. You were apologizing with your whole life. That's all I could do. It was enough. She wiped her eyes. I'm really glad we're here. Not just in this nice house, though it's lovely, but here, together, after everything. Me too. Do you ever think about how different things would be if I'd just let you stay with me 5 years ago? Sometimes. What do you think would have happened? Honestly, I think you would have lorded it over me forever. Every time we disagreed about something, you would have reminded me of how you helped me when I had nothing, and I would have felt like I owed you for the rest of my life. You're probably right, she admitted. I was pretty self-righteous back then. You were terrible. I was, she agreed. But I'm better now. At least I hope I am. You are. You're one of the best people I know, actually. She looked at me in surprise. Really? Really? Because you didn't just say sorry. You became sorry. You let yourself be broken down and built back up into someone new. Most people never do that. Most people don't get forced to by their sister. True. I am pretty ruthless. We both laughed. 3 years after my sister lost everything, she graduated with her master's degree in social work. I attended the ceremony and cheered embarrassingly loud when her name was called. Mom and Dad were there too, in the cheap seats they could afford, crying with pride. At dinner afterward, my sister made a toast. To my family, she said, who taught me that rock bottom is just a foundation to build something better on. To second chances, Mom added. To first chances, I corrected. Because what we're building now is completely new. We clinked glasses. That night, my sister pulled me aside. I got a job offer, she said, at the shelter where I stayed. They want me to be their new program director. That's perfect for you. It doesn't pay much, less than I'd make at a private practice or hospital. But it feels right, you know? Going back to help the place that helped me. Then you should take it. I am. I start next month. She paused. I also wanted to ask you something. What? The shelter is trying to raise money for renovations. Better showers, more beds, a proper kitchen. Would you be willing to make a donation? I'm not asking for me. I just know they need it. How much do they need? About $200,000 to do everything they want. I thought about my bank account, about the money sitting there that I barely thought about anymore. I'll write them a check for the full amount, I said. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely, but on one condition. What? You can't tell them it's from me. Say it's from an anonymous donor. I don't need recognition. Why anonymous? Because this isn't about me feeling good about myself. It's about making sure other women don't have to shower at a truck stop when they're at their lowest point. She hugged me then, hard and long. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for this. For everything, for giving me exactly what I deserved instead of what I wanted, for showing me who I could become if I was willing to do the work. You did the work yourself, I said. I just refused to take it away from you. The shelter renovation finished 6 months later. On the opening day, I went with my sister to see the new facilities. The women staying there had no idea I'd funded it, which was exactly how I wanted it. This is amazing, one woman said to my sister. Real showers with hot water, a kitchen where we can actually cook, beds that don't feel like prison cots. Whoever donated this money is an angel, my sister smiled. They're not an angel. They're just someone who remembers what it's like. 5 years after that freezing January in my Honda Civic. 5 years after my sister refused to help me. 4 years after I refused to help her. My sister called with news. I'm buying a house, she said. Really? It's nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, needs work. But it's mine. Well, it will be mine in 30 years after I pay off the mortgage. That's incredible. I'm proud of you. I want you to come see it before I close. Tell me if you think I'm making a mistake. I drove to the address she gave me. It was a small bungalow in a working-class neighborhood, with a chain-link fence and a yard full of weeds. The paint was peeling and the porch sagged slightly. My sister was waiting outside, practically bouncing with excitement. I know it's not much, she said, but it has good bones, and I can fix it up gradually. It's perfect, I said honestly. You mean that? I do, because it's yours. You earned it. We walked through together. The floors creaked. The kitchen was ancient. The bathroom had pink tile from the 1960s, but it was solid and it was hers. The best part, she said, is that it has 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for whoever needs it. What do you mean? I mean, if someone calls me at midnight, broke and desperate, with nowhere to go, I'm going to have a room ready for them, because I know what it's like when no one will help. I felt my throat tighten. That's really beautiful, I managed to say. I learned from the best, she said, smiling. You didn't just teach me a lesson 5 years ago. You taught me who I never want to be again, and more importantly, who I can choose to become instead. We stood in that empty house, 2 sisters who'd destroyed and rebuilt their relationship from nothing, and I realized something. The anger I'd carried for 5 years was completely gone. Not because she'd apologized enough or suffered enough or earned enough, but because she'd become someone new, someone I actually liked and respected. I'm glad you called me that night. I said. She looked surprised. Even though you were broke and desperate? Especially because of that. It forced us both to figure out who we really were when everything else was stripped away. And who are we? Survivors, I said. Both of us in different ways. She nodded. I'll take that. 6 years after my sister refused to help me, 5 years after I refused to help her, we spent Thanksgiving in her little house with the creaky floors and outdated kitchen. She'd fixed it up slowly, room by room, doing most of the work herself. Mom and Dad came too, older and humbler than they used to be. We ate turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, and no one talked about who had money and who didn't, who was successful and who'd failed. We just talked. At one point, my sister raised her glass. To family, she said, who we choose to become for each other, not who we're forced to be by blood. To second chances, Mom added. To hard lessons, Dad said quietly. To surviving, I finished. We drank together. 4 people who'd all failed each other in different ways and somehow found our way back. After dinner, my sister and I did dishes together in her tiny kitchen. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. That night 5 years ago when I turned you away, I didn't just ruin your life for a month. I ruined my own life forever. What do you mean? I mean, I became someone I hated. Someone who valued comfort over compassion. Someone who could watch their sibling suffer and call it a life lesson. And I stayed that person until I lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. She scrubbed a plate thoughtfully. So when you refused to help me, you weren't just teaching me a lesson. You were giving me the only path back to being human again. And I'm grateful for that, even though it was hell. You're welcome, I said. Though I'm not sure I was being that noble. Mostly I was just angry and wanted you to hurt like I hurt. I know, but it worked out the same in the end. It did. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. 2 sisters who'd learned that sometimes the cruelest kindness is refusing to save someone from themselves. 7 years after sleeping in my Honda Civic, 6 years after my sister lost everything, we stood in my living room on Christmas morning, watching the sun rise through the windows. Do you remember what you asked me that day you showed up at my door? She asked. Which part? You asked if I was sorry because I was in the same position, or if I was sorry because I understood what I did was wrong regardless of where we both ended up. I remember. I told you both and it was true. But now looking back, I realized something else. What? I was sorry for both those reasons, but I stayed sorry and became better for a third reason, which was because I saw who you became after surviving what I put you through. And I wanted to become that person too. Strong enough to build something from nothing, compassionate enough to help others without expecting anything back, secure enough to not need external validation. You showed me what was possible. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not trying to flatter you, she continued. I'm just saying that refusing to help me was the greatest gift you could have given me, because it forced me to become someone I'm proud of, someone who can look in the mirror without flinching. I'm proud of you too, I said. Even though I was terrible to you, especially because you were terrible to me and chose to become better. Anyone can be good from the start. It takes real strength to be bad and then change. She wiped her eyes. When did you get so wise? Probably during those freezing nights in my car thinking about how my sister was in Cabo drinking margaritas. We both laughed. Too soon? I asked. No, she said. It's been long enough. We can laugh about it now. And we did. We laughed about all of it. The Honda Civic, the shelter, the extended stay motel, the Dave Ramsey links, the angry phone calls, the years of hurt and healing. We laughed until we cried. And then we cried until we laughed again, and somewhere in that cycle, we let go of the last bits of pain we'd been carrying. 8 years after I lost everything, 7 years after my sister refused to help me, 6 years after I refused to help her, we were different people living different lives and being better to each other because of it. My sister called me from the shelter where she worked. We have a situation, she said. There's a woman here about your age who lost her tech job and her apartment in the same week. She's sleeping in her car. She reminds me so much of you 8 years ago that it's scary. What does she need? A chance. Just a chance to get back on her feet without someone judging her for falling in the first place. Send me her information, I said. I'll hire her as a contractor for my company. 3 months guaranteed, decent pay, remote work so she can do it from the library if she needs to. After that, we'll see if it's a good fit for something permanent. Just like that? Just like that. You know, most people who survive what you survived would just want to forget it ever happened. But you keep finding ways to help people in the same situation. That's because I remember what I needed wasn't just money. It was someone believing I could do it. Someone giving me a real chance instead of charity or judgment. That's exactly what this woman needs. Then that's what she'll get. 3 months later, that woman wasn't just still employed. She was thriving. She'd found an apartment, paid off some debts, and was rebuilding her life. She sent me a thank you card that said simply, "You gave me a chance when I was invisible." I'll never forget that. I showed it to my sister at our weekly coffee meetup. That's beautiful, she said. It's what you should have given me 8 years ago. She nodded. You're right, but I'm giving it to people now. We both are. Maybe that's worth something. It is, I agreed. It doesn't erase the past, but it builds something better for the future. That's all we can do, isn't it? Be better than we were. It's enough. 10 years after I lost everything, 9 years after my sister refused to help me, 8 years after I refused to help her, we sat together at my kitchen table, drinking coffee and talking about nothing important. Do you ever wish things had happened differently? She asked suddenly. In what way? That I'd helped you when you asked, that we'd skipped all the pain and anger and just stayed close. I thought about that for a long time. No, I said finally, because then we'd still be the people we were before. You'd still be someone who valued comfort over compassion. I'd still be someone who hadn't been tested. We'd be comfortable and complacent, and probably miserable in ways we wouldn't even recognize. So, you're glad it happened? I'm glad who we became because it happened. The journey was awful, but the destination is pretty good. She smiled. That's such a you answer, making tragedy sound like a gift. It wasn't a gift. It was hell. But we made something good from it anyway, which is different. I love you, she said suddenly. I don't think I've said that enough. I love you too, I replied. Even though you let me freeze in my car. Even though I let you freeze in your car, she agreed. And even though you made me live in a roach motel, especially because I made you live in a roach motel. We raised our coffee cups in a mock toast, two sisters who'd hurt each other and healed each other and become better because of both. The present day, I'm sitting in my office when my phone rings. It's my sister. I need to tell you something, she says. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually. I just got offered the director position at a women's shelter network. It oversees 12 shelters across 3 states. It's a huge job with huge responsibilities. That's incredible. It is. But it pays less than I make now, and the hours will be brutal, and I'll be dealing with tragedy every single day. But you're going to take it? I already accepted, she says, because I keep thinking about that woman who slept in my old bed at the shelter, and the one after her, and how someone needs to fight for them the way no one fought for us when we needed it. You're going to be amazing at this. I learned from the best, she says. You taught me that refusing to enable someone isn't the same as refusing to care, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is force them to find their own strength. You taught me something too, I say. What's that? That people can change. That being cruel once doesn't mean being cruel forever. That redemption is real if someone's willing to do the work. We both did the work, she says. Yeah, I agree. We did. After we hang up, I sit in my office thinking about how strange life is, how the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best version of myself, how refusing to help my sister was simultaneously the cruelest and kindest thing I could have done, how sometimes being broken is the only way to rebuild yourself into something stronger. My sister and I talk every week now. We're real with each other in a way we never were before. No pretense, no judgment, no scorekeeping. Just two people who survived their own destructions and chose to build something better from the rubble. Is our relationship perfect? No. Do I sometimes still feel a flash of anger when I remember that freezing January? Yes. Does she sometimes still feel shame about the person she was? Absolutely. But we're honest about it. We acknowledge the hurt instead of pretending it never happened. And slowly, year by year, we're building something that might actually be better than what we had before we broke everything. Because the truth is, sometimes things need to break completely before you can put them back together right. Sometimes the only way forward is through the worst thing you can imagine. Sometimes refusing to save someone is the only way to help them save themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the cruelest thing you can do to someone is also the kindest. My sister taught me that when she refused to help me. I taught it back to her when I did the same. And now we both know it, carry it, live it. Not because we're vindictive or heartless, but because we understand something most people never learn. That true compassion sometimes looks like cruelty. That real love sometimes requires letting someone struggle. And that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or shelter or comfort. It's the chance to discover their own strength. Even if they have to freeze in a car to find it. Even if they have to live in a roach motel to understand it. Even if it takes years of pain and healing and hard conversations to finally arrive at something real. We did all of that. We survived all of that. And here we are on the other side. Two sisters who destroyed each other and rebuilt each other and became better people because we refused to take the easy path. I wouldn't change a thing. Neither would she. And that's how we both know we finally got it right. I paid for my entire family's dream vacation, but when I got there, I found out my sister told everyone I got the tickets for free. So I canceled the return flights and watched her explain who was really paying. The trip was supposed to fix everything. I'd worked doubles at the hospital for 18 months, lived on ramen, and saved $9,200 to take my family to Costa Rica. My parents never had a real vacation. My sister constantly posted about how boring our family was compared to her friends' families who traveled. When I sent the itinerary, my sister called crying with gratitude. Mom sent me a voice message saying I was too generous. Dad texted 3 heart emojis, which for him was practically a novel. The resort was paradise. Endless beaches, infinity pools, activities included. On our second day, I was getting drinks when I overheard my aunt talking to strangers at the bar. My niece works for this airline, she said proudly. Got us all buddy passes, practically free except taxes. I stood there, frozen, holding 2 piña coladas. Buddy passes? I found my cousin later by the pool. So lucky your work gave you those companion tickets, she said. Wish my job had perks like that. That night, I confronted my sister on her balcony. Buddy passes? I said. You told them I got airline employee discounts? She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't want everyone feeling guilty that you spent so much. So you lied and made it seem like this cost me nothing. Does it really matter? She asked. Everyone's happy. We're all here together. It matters because I worked 70-hour weeks. It matters because this was every dollar I saved. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. No one cares who paid what. But they did care. At dinner, my uncle kept talking about how amazing employee benefits were these days. How I should see if I could get more buddy passes for Christmas. My cousin asked if I could get her discounted flights to Europe. My sister smiled through every comment. Never corrected anyone. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. Found the flight reservations. Canceled every return ticket except mine. The fees were brutal, but I'd already paid for the insult of having 18 months of sacrifice erased. 3 days later, my sister burst into my room at breakfast time. The airline app says our tickets don't exist. That's strange, I said, not looking up from my coffee. I called them. They said someone canceled everything. Probably a computer error. Her face went pale as understanding hit. You didn't. I did. Since everyone thinks these tickets were free employee perks, I figured actual money wouldn't matter. Are you serious right now? Completely. If you want to get home, book your own flight. Last-minute tickets are running about $900 each. I don't have $900. Then I guess you'll need to explain to everyone who actually paid for this vacation. She tried bargaining, then threatening, then crying. I packed my bag while she spiraled. By lunch, the entire family knew. They gathered in the lobby, looking at their phones in panic. My sister had told them everything, trying to paint me as vindictive. But my dad asked the question that mattered. Did you really tell everyone your sister got these tickets for free? My sister stammered. You thought erasing my sacrifice was easier than admitting I did something generous, I said. The shame on my parents' faces was almost worse than my sister's lies. My uncle started calculating credit card limits. My aunt was crying. My cousin kept apologizing for the Europe comment. I grabbed my suitcase. I'm leaving on my original flight. The rest of you figure it out. My sister blocked the door. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll tell everyone the truth. You already should have. I pushed past her. At the airport, my phone exploded with messages. Most were from my parents, frantically trying to book last-minute flights they couldn't afford. One was from my sister, begging. Then a call from an unknown number. Resort security. We need you to return immediately. A guest has filed a fraud report claiming you used her credit card information without authorization. Local police are involved. My sister's voice in the background, explaining something to officers. My hand tightened around my phone. I'm sorry, what? Miss, your sister has filed a report claiming you accessed her credit card without permission to book flights. The charges were significant. Costa Rican authorities take financial crimes very seriously. I felt my blood pressure spike. That's completely false. You'll need to return to the resort to provide a statement. If you board that plane, it could be considered fleeing jurisdiction. My sister's manipulation had reached a new low. She was trying to criminalize me for her lies. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said through gritted teeth. The cab ride back felt longer than the flight from home. I used the time to pull up every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of documentation proving I'd paid for everything with my own money. When I walked into the resort security office, I found my sister sitting with two police officers, dabbing her eyes with tissue. She looked up when I entered, and for a split second, I saw calculation flash across her face before she resumed her tearful victim act. Officers, I said calmly, I'm happy to cooperate fully. But first, I'd like to understand exactly what I'm being accused of. The taller officer consulted his notepad. Your sister claims you used her credit card information to purchase airline tickets totaling $9,200 without her knowledge or consent. That's interesting, I said, opening my laptop, because I paid for those tickets with my own card, from my own account, 6 months ago. I turned the screen to show them my bank statements, highlighting the transaction, the date, the amount, my name on the account. The officer's expression shifted. These appear to be your personal funds, he said slowly. They are. Every cent came from my savings. I worked overtime for 18 months to afford this trip. Then why would your sister file this report? The second officer asked. My sister jumped in. She canceled all our return flights. She stranded us here. The tickets I paid for, I clarified, with my money, which makes them my property to cancel if I choose. You can't just leave people in another country, my sister shrieked. You're adults with credit cards and functioning brains, I replied. You can book your own flights home. The first officer held up his hand. Let me understand this. You purchased tickets for your family as a gift. Your sister misrepresented how the tickets were obtained. When you discovered her deception, you canceled the return portions of tickets that you paid for. Exactly. He turned to my sister. Do you have any evidence that she used your credit card? My sister's mouth opened and closed. Well, no, but did you give her permission to use your card at any point? No, because I didn't. She must have. So you filed a false police report, the officer said flatly. The color drained from my sister's face. I didn't mean to file a false report, she backtracked frantically. I just thought maybe she'd used my information somehow. I was confused. The stress of being stranded? Filing a false report is a criminal offense, the second officer stated, particularly when it involves allegations of fraud and theft. Wait, no, my sister said, standing abruptly. I made a mistake. Can't I just withdraw the report? You wasted police resources, the first officer said. Pulled us away from legitimate cases. That has consequences. I watched my sister's panic escalate. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt exhausted. Officers, I said quietly, would it be possible to speak with my sister privately for a moment? They exchanged glances, then nodded. We'll be right outside. Once the door closed, my sister whirled on me. You have to tell them this was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You filed a false report to try to manipulate me into restoring your flights. I panicked, okay? Everyone's furious at me. Mom won't even look at me. Dad keeps asking how I could be so ungrateful. I just needed them to stop. By making me the criminal? She slumped into her chair. I messed up. I know I messed up. You've been messing up since the moment you told everyone those tickets were free. I thought I was helping, she said weakly. No, you thought you were avoiding feeling inferior. You couldn't stand that your younger sister did something generous that you couldn't do yourself. The truth hung between us. Please, she whispered. Don't let them charge me. I'll tell everyone what really happened. I'll apologize. I'll pay you back somehow. I studied her face, saw genuine fear there, mixed with shame. You should have thought about consequences before you lied, I said. Before you let Uncle talk about buddy passes. Before you filed a false police report. I know. I walked to the door, then paused. I'll tell the officers I don't wish to press additional charges, But you're fixing this mess yourself. Book your own flight home, apologize to everyone, and never ever claim credit for something I did again. I promise, she said, voice breaking. I stepped outside and approached the officers. I don't want to pursue charges related to the false report. My sister made a mistake out of desperation. I think the situation has been stressful enough for everyone involved. The first officer nodded slowly. That's generous of you, but we'll still need to document that a false report was filed. She'll receive a formal warning. I understand. You're free to catch your flight, the second officer said. We have everything we need from you. I thanked them and headed back to the taxi area. My phone buzzed continuously during the ride to the airport. Mom begging me to help them book flights. Dad saying we needed to talk as a family. My aunt leaving a tearful voicemail about how sorry she was. I responded to only one message. Mom's. I'm catching my flight. You all need to handle your own arrangements. When I get home, we can discuss what happens next. At the airport, I settled into my seat, declining the flight attendant's offer of champagne. I was too exhausted to celebrate. The passenger next to me, a woman in her 60s, noticed my expression. Rough vacation? You could say that? Family drama? I laughed without humor. Is there any other kind? I've been flying to Costa Rica for 30 years, she said. Every trip, I leave my family at home. Best decision I ever made. We flew in comfortable silence after that. I dozed fitfully, waking as we descended into familiar territory. My apartment had never looked better. I dropped my bags and collapsed on the couch, finally allowing myself to process everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We made it home. Your mother and I paid for your sister's ticket. Your aunt and uncle used credit cards for theirs. Your cousin is still trying to figure something out. Then, another message. We need to talk about what happened. I stared at those words. We need to talk, as if this were some minor misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a conversation. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, I'm not ready yet. For 3 days, I ignored calls and texts from everyone except my best friend Riley, who brought wine and listened to the whole story without interrupting once. So your sister basically committed credit fraud against the police, Riley said finally. That's impressively stupid. She was desperate. She was manipulative. There's a difference. Riley had a point. Desperation didn't excuse lying to police officers. What are you going to do? Riley asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to never speak to any of them again. Part of me knows that's not realistic. You could at least make them sweat a little longer. On day 4, I finally answered when Mom called. Thank God, she breathed. I've been so worried. I'm fine. We need to talk about Costa Rica. We really don't. Your sister feels terrible about what she did. She should. Mom sighed. I know you're angry. You have every right to be, but she's your sister. She made a mistake. She made multiple calculated decisions, I corrected. She lied about where the tickets came from. She let that lie spread and grow. She watched me be humiliated. Then she tried to have me arrested. She wasn't thinking clearly. Stop making excuses for her. Silence on the other end. I worked 18 months for that vacation, I said quietly. 70-hour weeks. I ate ramen so I could save every extra dollar. I wanted to do something nice for all of you, and we're so grateful. Are you? Because being grateful would mean acknowledging what I did. It would mean correcting lies when you heard them. It would mean supporting me when everything fell apart. We didn't know what to do, Mom admitted. You could have asked me. You could have believed me. Instead, you watched your daughter file a false police report against me. We thought she was just panicking. I'm hanging up now, I said. When you're ready to actually hold her accountable instead of explaining away her behavior, we can talk again. I ended the call and immediately blocked my sister's number. I couldn't handle her apologies or excuses. Work became my sanctuary. The hospital emergency room was chaotic and demanding, which meant I didn't have time to think about family drama. My coworkers noticed my extra shifts but didn't comment. 2 weeks after returning from Costa Rica, I arrived home to find my sister sitting on my apartment steps. How did you get this address? I asked. Mom gave it to me. Please, I just need 5 minutes. You don't get to show up at my home uninvited. I know, but you won't answer my calls or texts. I needed to apologize in person. I considered going inside and shutting the door in her face. Instead, I sat down on the step next to her, maintaining careful distance. You have 5 minutes. She took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that's not enough, but I mean it. What I did was unforgivable. Then why are you asking for forgiveness? Because you're my sister. Because I messed up the most generous thing anyone's ever done for our family. Because I let my own insecurity turn me into someone I hate. What insecurity? She laughed bitterly. Are you serious? You're the responsible one, the successful one, the one who saves lives and works 70-hour weeks and still manages to drop $9,000 on a vacation. Meanwhile, I'm barely keeping my head above water financially. So you decided to tear me down. I decided to make it seem like you hadn't done anything special, like it was just some work perk that fell in your lap. Because if it was easy for you, then I didn't have to feel so inadequate. At least she was being honest. That's some twisted logic, I said. I know. And then when you canceled the flights, I panicked. Everyone was looking at me like I'd ruined everything. So I tried to shift blame back to you. Make it seem like you were the one being unreasonable. By accusing me of credit card fraud. She winced. I wasn't thinking. I just needed them to stop being angry at me. So you tried to get me arrested in a foreign country. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you were willing to destroy my life to avoid accountability. She started crying. Not the manipulative tears from the resort, but genuine sobs that shook her shoulders. I hate myself for what I did. I've barely slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face at the resort. How betrayed you looked. I sat with her pain for a moment. Not to comfort her, but to witness it. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally. I understand, but I appreciate you acknowledging what you did. She wiped her eyes. For what it's worth, I've been in therapy, trying to figure out why I do this kind of thing. What kind of thing? Sabotage relationships, tear down people I love when they succeed. My therapist says it's about self-worth. Your self-worth isn't my responsibility to manage. I know. That's what I'm trying to work on. We sat in silence as the sun set behind the buildings. I'm not ready to have you in my life right now, I said. Maybe someday, but not now. She nodded, standing slowly. I'll leave you alone. But I meant what I said about the apology, and about trying to be better. I watched her walk away, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. That night, I finally responded to Mom's texts. I saw my sister today. I appreciate that she apologized, but I need space from all of you right now. Please respect that. Mom's response came quickly. How much space? I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. I'll reach out when I'm ready. We love you. I know. But love wasn't enough. Not when it came without accountability. Not when it excused harmful behavior for the sake of keeping peace. The months passed slowly. I threw myself into work, picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnected with friends I'd neglected while saving for Costa Rica. Riley dragged me to pottery classes and hiking trips. You seem lighter, she observed one Saturday morning over coffee. I feel lighter. No family guilt weighing you down? Surprisingly little. Have they been respecting your boundaries? Mostly. Mom texts every few weeks to check in. Dad sent a card for my birthday. My sister leaves me alone, which I appreciate. Think you'll ever reconnect? I considered the question. Maybe, on my terms, when I'm ready. That's fair. 3 months after Costa Rica, I received an unexpected letter, handwritten, from my sister. I'm not sending this to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I've continued therapy. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, which doesn't excuse what I did, but helps explain some of my patterns. I'm working on building my own life instead of tearing down yours. I got a promotion at work. I'm paying back Mom and Dad for the flight they bought me. Small steps, but they feel important. I hope you're doing well. You deserve every good thing. Your sister. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But acknowledgement that people could change. 4 months after Costa Rica, Dad called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetie. I know you said you needed space, but I have something I need to say. Okay. I failed you in Costa Rica. I failed you before that, too. I should have questioned your sister's story about the tickets. I should have protected you when everything fell apart. I should have believed you without hesitation. My throat tightened. I've thought about it every day since we got back, he continued. How we let you down. How we prioritized your sister's feelings over your sacrifice. I'm ashamed of myself. Dad, let me finish. You worked yourself to exhaustion to give us something beautiful, and we threw it back in your face. Not intentionally, but through complacency, through not questioning, through choosing comfort over truth. I felt tears building. I don't expect you to forgive us, he said, but I needed you to know that I see what we did wrong, and I'm sorry. Thank you, I whispered. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. After we hung up, I cried for the first time since leaving Costa Rica. Not angry tears or bitter tears, but cleansing ones. 6 months after Costa Rica, I agreed to have coffee with Mom. We met at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. She looked older somehow, more tired. Thank you for meeting me, she said. You're welcome. I've missed you. I've missed you too. We ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence until Mom finally spoke. I've been replaying everything in my mind. All the times I should have stepped in, should have questioned the Buddy Pass story, should have supported you instead of managing your sister's emotions. Why didn't you? She considered the question carefully. Your sister has always been more fragile, required more attention, more careful handling. Somewhere along the way, I started assuming you were fine because you were competent, because you handled things. I'm not always fine. I know that now. I took your strength for granted. Let your sister's neediness overshadow your needs. It felt like my feelings didn't matter, I admitted, like keeping peace was more important than acknowledging what actually happened. Your feelings matter enormously. What happened to you in Costa Rica was cruel, and we made it worse by not standing up for you. I nodded, feeling some of the anger dissolve. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, Mom said, but I can promise to try harder, to see you instead of just assuming you're okay, to believe you first. That's all I wanted. Can we try again? Slowly? I thought about it. About the cost of holding on to anger versus the cost of rebuilding. Slowly, I agree. Over the following months, I carefully reconstructed relationships with my parents. Dinners every few weeks, phone calls that felt genuine, boundaries that were respected. My sister and I remained distant. Not hostile, but not close. We'd exchange brief texts on holidays, acknowledge each other's existence without pretending everything was fine. 1 year after Costa Rica, I received a check in the mail, $9,200, from my sister. The note attached said simply, I can't undo what I did, but I can return what you spent. Thank you for the lesson in accountability. I stared at that check for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it up, send it back, refuse her attempt at restitution. Instead, I deposited it and used it to book a solo trip to New Zealand, posted photos of mountains and glaciers and stunning coastlines. Lived exactly the adventure I wanted without worrying about anyone else's comfort or opinion. My sister liked every photo, never commented, just acknowledged my joy from a distance. 2 years after Costa Rica, I ran into my aunt at the grocery store. We hadn't spoken since the trip. I owe you an apology, she said immediately. You do. I should have questioned the Buddy Pass story. Should have thanked you properly for your generosity. Should have supported you when everything fell apart. Why didn't you? Because it was easier to believe the comfortable lie. Easier to enjoy the vacation without guilt. I'm ashamed of that now. I appreciate you saying that. Your sister told us what really happened, about how she manipulated the situation, how she tried to have you arrested. We had no idea it went that far. She finally told the truth? At Thanksgiving dinner last year, just laid it all out. Your uncle was furious with her, with himself for not seeing it sooner. How is my cousin doing? I asked, remembering her Europe comment. Embarrassed. She wanted to reach out but didn't know if you'd want to hear from her. She was just going along with what she was told. I don't blame her. My aunt's eyes teared up. You're kinder than we deserve. I'm not kind. I'm just tired of holding on to anger. 3 years after Costa Rica, my sister asked if we could meet for lunch. I agreed, curious about what she had to say after all this time. She looked different, healthier somehow, more settled in her own skin. Thank you for coming, she said. You said it was important. It is. I'm getting married. I felt surprised, and something else. Maybe happiness for her. Congratulations. His name is Owen. He's a teacher, patient and kind and everything I'm not naturally. You're more than you give yourself credit for. She smiled sadly. I'm trying to be. Therapy helped. So did Owen. He doesn't let me get away with my old patterns. That's good. I'm not inviting you to the wedding. I raised my eyebrows. Not because I don't want you there, she clarified quickly, but because I don't want to pressure you. Don't want to force reconciliation before you're ready. Owen said I needed to respect your boundaries even if it hurts. Owen sounds smart. He is. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. For what it's worth, she said eventually. Costa Rica changed me, hitting rock bottom like that, seeing who I'd become. It forced me to either get better or stay miserable. I'm glad you chose better. I almost didn't, but Owen found me at my lowest point and saw potential instead of disaster. Everyone deserves that. Even you? I thought about it. About Riley and my parents' attempts at redemption. About strangers who'd been kind for no reason. Yeah, even me. 4 years after Costa Rica, I accepted an invitation to my sister's home for dinner. She'd insisted it was casual. Just her, Owen, and me. Their apartment was small but warm. Photos on the walls, plants in every corner, a cat that immediately demanded attention. Owen greeted me with genuine friendliness. No awkwardness, no apologetic explanations. Just nice to finally meet you, and your sister talks about you constantly. Over dinner, I watched them interact. The way Owen gently corrected her when she started catastrophizing, how she laughed at his terrible jokes, the ease between them. This is nice, I said. It is, my sister agreed. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for earning it. After Owen went to load the dishwasher, my sister turned to me seriously. I know we'll never be the sisters we should have been, but I'd like to be the sisters we can be, if you're willing. What does that look like? Honest, boundaried, real, no pretending we're close if we're not. No forcing traditions that don't fit, just two people who share history trying to be in each other's lives authentically. I can work with that. 5 years after Costa Rica, I planned another family vacation, smaller this time, just mom, dad, and me. We went to Maine, rented a cabin by the coast, spent our days hiking and eating lobster rolls and having conversations that actually meant something. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Dad said, "This is what Costa Rica should have been." It's better, I corrected, because it's honest. Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for showing up differently. That night, I thought about the 19-year-old version of myself who'd worked 70-hour weeks to create a perfect vacation. How desperately she'd wanted to bring everyone together. How crushed she'd been when it all fell apart. I wished I could tell her that the falling apart was necessary, that sometimes things have to break completely before they can be rebuilt into something stronger. 7 years after Costa Rica, my sister had a baby, a little girl named after our grandmother. When she asked if I'd be willing to be the godmother, I said yes. Not because everything was fixed, not because the past was forgotten, but because people deserved chances to be better. And my sister had taken hers. At the christening, surrounded by family who'd worked hard to heal their broken pieces, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not the false peace of pretending nothing happened, not the fragile peace of walking on eggshells, but the hard-won peace of people who'd hurt each other, held each other accountable, and chosen to keep trying. Riley found me after the ceremony. How are you feeling? Good. Really good. No regrets about Costa Rica? I thought about it. About the 18 months of saving, the humiliation at the resort, the canceled flights, the false police report, about all the pain that had followed. No regrets, I said finally. It taught me that my worth isn't in what I can provide for other people, that boundaries are necessary, even with family, that love without accountability is meaningless. Heavy lessons, worth learning. 10 years after Costa Rica, I married Riley. We'd fallen in love slowly, built on friendship and trust and mutual respect. My sister was a bridesmaid, not maid of honor. That went to my college roommate who'd been there through everything. But bridesmaid felt right, acknowledged our relationship without overstating it. During her toast, she said something that made me cry. My sister taught me that you can't erase your mistakes, but you can learn from them. That redemption isn't a moment, it's a process. That love means holding people accountable, not letting them off easy. I'm grateful every day that she didn't give up on our family, even when we gave her every reason to. Later that night, as Riley and I danced under string lights, I thought about the girl who'd saved $9,200 for a dream vacation. She'd gotten something better than a perfect trip to Costa Rica. She'd gotten a lesson in self-worth that would shape the rest of her life. She'd learned that her value didn't come from how much she could give or how much she could forgive. It came from knowing what she deserved and refusing to settle for less. She'd learned that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about mutual respect and genuine accountability. She'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. And she'd learned that healing isn't linear. It's messy and complicated and sometimes takes a decade, but it's possible if everyone involved is willing to do the work. As Riley spun me under the lights, I whispered, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me, for believing me without question, for never asking me to shrink myself to make others comfortable. That's just basic respect. It's rarer than you think. The wedding ended late. We drove to the airport for our honeymoon flight. As we checked in, Riley asked, "Where to?" "Somewhere we've never been. Somewhere with no expectations or history. Just us and possibility." "Costa Rica?" I laughed. "Absolutely not." We ended up in Iceland, watched the northern lights from a geothermal pool, hiked glaciers and explored volcanic landscapes, made memories that belonged only to us. On our last night, as we soaked in a hot spring under the stars, Riley said, "Tell me about the person you were before Costa Rica." Younger, more naive, desperate to prove my worth through what I could give others. And now? Now I know my worth is inherent, not earned through sacrifice or generosity, just there because I'm human and I matter. Took you a decade to learn that? Some lessons take time. We sat in comfortable silence, steam rising around us. "Do you think your sister really changed?" Riley asked. "I think she's trying, some days more successfully than others, but the trying counts for something." "And your parents?" "They showed up differently, made real effort, apologized without making excuses. That's all I can ask." "What about you? Do you think you changed?" I considered it. I became someone who values peace more than being right, who chooses boundaries over bitterness, who can hold space for both hurt and healing. That sounds exhausting. Sometimes it is, but it's better than the alternative. The stars reflected in the water around us, infinite and beautiful and indifferent to human drama. "I'm glad you canceled those flights," Riley said suddenly. "Yeah? It was the first time you chose yourself. Everything good that happened after came from that decision." Riley was right. Canceling those flights had been about more than punishing my sister's lies. It had been about declaring that my sacrifice mattered, that my feelings mattered, that I mattered. Everything else, the therapy, the boundaries, the rebuilt relationships, had flowed from that single act of self-respect. "Best $900 in cancellation fees I ever spent," I said. Riley laughed. "That's one way to look at it." We flew home the next day, back to our life together, back to jobs and responsibilities and the beautiful mundanity of everyday existence. My sister texted a photo of my goddaughter's first steps. I responded with congratulations and a promise to visit soon. Mom called to ask about the honeymoon, actually listened to my stories instead of redirecting to her own news. Dad sent a card welcoming Riley to the family, short and simple and from the heart. Small moments, small gestures, but they added up to something larger. 15 years after Costa Rica, I sat in my sister's living room watching my goddaughter open birthday presents. She was bright and funny, and nothing like either of us at her age. "Auntie," she said, holding up a toy airplane, "can we go on a trip together someday?" My sister tensed, waiting for my response. "Absolutely," I said. "When you're old enough, we'll plan something amazing, just you and me. And Mommy, if Mommy wants to come." My sister relaxed visibly. "I'd love that." Later, as I helped clean up wrapping paper, she said quietly, "Thank you for being in her life, for not punishing her for what I did. She's a kid. This isn't her burden to carry. Still, it means everything." I thought about cycles of hurt and healing, about how easy it would have been to stay bitter, to cut everyone off and never look back. Some people would have said that was the healthy choice, complete separation from toxic family. But health looks different for everyone. For me, it meant carefully rebuilt relationships with clear boundaries. It meant holding people accountable while also holding space for growth. It meant refusing to let my sister's worst moment define her forever. "How's therapy going?" I asked. "Good. I still see Dr. Palmer twice a month. Work through old patterns. Try to be better than yesterday. That's all any of us can do." 20 years after Costa Rica, I received an invitation to my sister's vow renewal. 20 years of marriage to Owen. 20 years of choosing growth over comfort. The ceremony was small, just close family and friends. My goddaughter, now a teenager, read a poem about second chances. During her speech, my sister acknowledged the journey. 20 years ago, I married a man who saw potential in my broken pieces. 10 years before that, I almost destroyed my relationship with my sister through my own insecurity. I'm grateful every day for the people who loved me enough to hold me accountable while still believing I could change. She looked directly at me. "Thank you for not giving up on our family, for showing me what real strength looks like." After the ceremony, my parents pulled me aside. They looked older now, frailer. Time had softened all of us. "We're proud of you," Dad said. "For what?" "For building a good life, for being wise about boundaries, for teaching us what accountability looks like." I was just surviving. "You were leading," Mom corrected, "whether you meant to or not." That night, dancing with Riley at the reception, I felt the weight of 2 decades of healing. "Still no regrets?" Riley asked, knowing what I was thinking about. Still no regrets. Not even about the $9,000? Best investment I ever made in myself, because that's what Costa Rica had been. Not a vacation, not a gift, but an investment in learning my worth. And the returns, in self-respect, in healthy boundaries, in authentic relationships, had been worth every penny. The song changed. My goddaughter grabbed my hand. "Dance with me, Auntie." I let her spin me around the dance floor, laughing at her enthusiasm. This moment, this joy, existed because I'd refused to accept less than I deserved, because I'd valued myself enough to cancel those flights, because I'd learned that sometimes love means consequences, And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is showing them who you are when you're not sacrificing yourself for their comfort. 25 years after Costa Rica, my sister and I sat on my porch drinking wine, watching the sunset. Our parents were gone now, Dad 5 years earlier, Mom just last spring. Their passings had been peaceful, their final years filled with genuine connection. Do you ever think about Costa Rica? My sister asked. Sometimes. I think about it all the time, the worst version of myself on full display. We were young, stupid, figuring things out. I was cruel. You were scared. She looked at me seriously. Does it ever stop hurting? Knowing I hurt you that badly? Eventually, you stop living in the past. You acknowledge it, learn from it, but you don't let it define you. I wish I'd been different. You became different. That matters more. We sat in silence, comfortable with the space between words. Riley asked me something once, I said. Asked if I thought you really changed. What did you say? That you're trying. Some days more successfully than others. Still true 25 years later? Still true. But also, who cares? You're trying. That's enough. My sister's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for not writing me off, for giving me chances to be better. Thank you for taking them. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Costa Rica was beautiful, though, my sister said quietly. The parts before everything fell apart. It was. Think you'd ever go back? Maybe, with Riley, on our terms. If you do, send me a picture. I will. 30 years after Costa Rica, I stood in my kitchen making coffee when the memories hit unexpectedly. The resort, the piña coladas, the look on my sister's face when she realized I'd canceled the flights. But this time, instead of anger or hurt, I felt something else. Gratitude. For the lesson learned, for the boundary set, for the person I'd become because of it. My phone rang. My goddaughter, now an adult with a career and life of her own. Morning, Auntie. Got a question for you. Shoot. I'm planning a family trip. Got a decent bonus at work. Want to take Mom and Dad somewhere nice. Any advice? I smiled at the full circle moment. Yeah, make sure they know you're paying. Make sure they thank you properly. And if anyone tries to diminish your generosity, shut that down immediately. She laughed. Learned that from experience? Something like that. Thanks, Auntie. Love you. Love you too. After we hung up, I poured my coffee and sat on the porch where my sister and I had talked 5 years earlier. Riley joined me, settling into the chair next to mine. What are you thinking about? Costa Rica. Ancient history. Important history. Still no regrets? Still no regrets. Because 3 decades later, I understood something I couldn't have known at 23. The vacation I'd planned had failed, but the lesson I'd learned had succeeded beyond measure. I'd learned that my worth wasn't in what I could provide, that boundaries were love in action, that accountability and grace could coexist. I'd learned that some people would rise to meet your standards, and some wouldn't, and both outcomes taught you something valuable. I'd learned that the family you build, through intention and respect and genuine care, matters more than the family you're born into. And I'd learned that the best investment you can make is in your own self-respect. Even if it costs $200 and a lot of pain. Even if it takes 3 decades to fully appreciate. Even if it means canceling flights and watching relationships break before they can rebuild. Because on the other side of that pain was a life lived on my own terms. With people who valued, in relationships built on honesty rather than obligation. And that was worth every penny. Riley reached over and took my hand. You okay? Yeah, just grateful. For what? For learning the hard lessons young enough to build a good life. For people who showed me what real love looks like. For having the courage to cancel those flights. Still the best decision you ever made? I thought about it. About everything that had followed, the pain and healing, the broken relationships rebuilt, the boundaries that had saved me. Top 3 at least. We sat together watching the morning sunrise, coffee cooling in our cups, 30 years of wisdom settling comfortably between us. Somewhere, my sister was probably drinking her own coffee, thinking about her own journey, her own lessons learned, her own redemption earned through years of consistent effort. And my goddaughter was planning a vacation, armed with my hard-won advice about boundaries and self-worth. The cycle had been broken. The lesson had been passed on. Costa Rica hadn't been a failure. It had been the beginning of everything that mattered. And 30 years later, I was finally grateful for all of it. The pain and the healing, the breaking and the rebuilding. All of it had led me here, to this porch, this life, this peace, to a place where I knew my worth and refused to settle for less, where I could hold both hurt and healing, both accountability and grace, where family meant respect, not obligation, and where love meant seeing people clearly, holding them to standards, and believing they could change. That was the real gift of Costa Rica. Not the vacation I'd planned, but the life I'd built from its ashes. I overheard my husband's siblings calling me his charity case, so I showed them they were the ones who needed charity. It happened at Thanksgiving dinner, while I was in the bathroom off the kitchen. The door was cracked just enough to hear Bridget and Theo discussing me like I was the hired help. Honestly, Liam could have done so much better, Bridget said. She didn't even finish college. I give it 2 years before he realizes he married down, Theo added. She's practically his charity project. They laughed. That sharp, entitled laugh that came from never struggling a day in their lives. I walked back into the dining room and smiled sweetly. Didn't say a word, just started planning. See, what Liam's siblings didn't know was that I'd dropped out of college because my dad got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I'd spent 3 years nursing him while working 2 jobs. After he died, I'd built my own medical billing company from nothing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Bridget was drowning. Her boutique was bleeding money. She'd taken out a loan using their parents' house as collateral. something she'd never mentioned to anyone. I knew because one of my clients worked at her bank. Theo wasn't much better. His restaurant had failed health inspections twice. He owed back taxes and was one surprise audit away from losing everything. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Bridget's loan came due, $47,000 she didn't have. The bank was moving to foreclose on their childhood home. She called Liam in tears, begging for help. "I don't have that kind of money," Liam told her honestly. That's when I stepped in. "I do." Her face when I showed up at her boutique with a cashier's check. Pure shock mixed with something darker. "There are conditions," I said calmly. "You'll repay me at fair market interest, and you'll stop talking about me like I'm beneath you." She took the check. She had no choice. 3 months later, Theo's restaurant failed inspection again. This time, it made the news. Customers vanished overnight. He was facing bankruptcy. At the family dinner where he broke down crying, I made him an offer. "I'll cover your debts and help you restructure. In exchange, you'll work with my company as a consultant." His management skills were actually solid once you got past his ego. "And you'll remember that marrying your brother was the best decision I ever made." He agreed, reluctantly. Now here's where it gets interesting. Last week, their parents' water heater exploded, flooding the basement. Insurance denied the claim. Guess who funded the repairs? At yesterday's family dinner, Bridget and Theo sat quietly while their parents toasted me for saving their home. Again, "We're so grateful Liam found you," their mother said warmly. "You've been such a blessing to this family." Bridget's jaw was so tight I thought her teeth might crack. After dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she hissed. "Making us dependent on you?" I smiled. "I'm not making you do anything. I'm just offering help to family who needs it. Isn't that what charity is?" Her face went red. But before she could respond, Liam walked in with his parents. They were holding an envelope. "We have something for you," his dad said, his eyes misty. "We're updating our will." Bridget went pale. "We're leaving you the lake house," his mother continued. "After everything you've done, you're more family than—" "No," Bridget interrupted, her voice shaking. "That house has been in our family for 4 generations. Liam's dad looked at her coldly. "And it would have been foreclosed on if your sister-in-law hadn't saved it. Twice." The room went silent. Theo stared at his plate. Bridget's hands were trembling. That's when the doorbell rang. Liam answered it and came back looking confused. "Bridget, there's a sheriff's deputy here. Something about your boutique?" Her face drained of all color. She walked slowly to the door. Through the window, I could see her talking to the deputy. Watched her knees buckle. Saw her turn back toward the house with absolute terror in her eyes. The deputy was holding papers. Thick ones. The kind that means serious trouble. Bridget stumbled back inside, her hand gripping the doorframe. "They're seizing the boutique," she whispered. "Tomorrow morning." Liam's mother gasped. "What? Why?" "Unpaid vendor debts. I thought I had more time to—" Bridget's voice cracked. She looked at me. "The loan you gave me. I used it for the bank, but I had other debts. Suppliers, contractors. They've been waiting months." The room felt smaller suddenly. Everyone was staring at her. "How much?" Liam's father asked quietly. Bridget's lips trembled. $83,000. Theo let out a low whistle. "Jesus, Bridget." "I had a plan," she said desperately. "The holiday season was supposed to save me. But sales have been—" She couldn't finish. Liam's mother turned to me. Her eyes were pleading. "Is there anything you can do? I know it's asking a lot, but—" "No," Bridget cut her off. "Absolutely not. I won't take another cent from her." I sipped my wine. Let the silence stretch. "Pride's expensive," I finally said, "especially when you're about to lose everything." Bridget's face twisted. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? To watch me beg?" "I've never wanted anything from you except basic respect," I said evenly. "But you couldn't even give me that." Liam stepped between us. "Everyone needs to calm down. Let's think about this rationally." "Rationally?" Bridget laughed bitterly. "Your wife has been systematically buying up my debts and Theo's debts and Mom and Dad's problems. She's turned us all into her employees." "That's not fair," Liam's father said sharply. "She's helped when no one else would." "Because it gives her power over us." Bridget's voice rose. "Can't you see what she's doing?" I set down my wine glass. Stood up. The room went quiet. "You want to know what I'm doing?" I said softly. "I'm showing you what it feels like to need someone, to have nowhere else to turn, to swallow your pride and ask for help from someone you thought was beneath you." Bridget's eyes filled with tears. "That Thanksgiving," I continued, "when you called me his charity case, when you laughed about him marrying down, did you think I wouldn't hear? Did you think words like that don't leave marks?" Bridget started. "I built my company from nothing. While you were living off your parents' money, opening boutiques with loans you couldn't repay, I was working 70-hour weeks to keep my dad alive. And when he died, I kept working. I made something. I earned everything I have." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "So when you needed help, I gave it. Because that's what family does. Even when that family treats you like garbage." Liam's mother was crying now. His father looked stricken. "But you're right about one thing," I said to Bridget. "I did enjoy it. Every single time you had to come to me. Every time you had to admit you needed the charity case." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Bridget did something I didn't expect. She laughed. A hollow, broken sound. "You win," she said quietly. "Is that what you want to hear? You win." She turned to leave. "Wait," I said. She stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'll cover the $83,000, on the same terms as before." Bridget's shoulders shook. "Why? So you can own me completely?" "No," I said. "So you can have the chance I gave your brother. The chance to prove you're more than your worst moment." She finally turned. Her mascara was running. "I don't understand you." "I know," I said. "But you will." The deputy had left his card. I called the number that night from my home office. Liam was asleep. I'd been staring at spreadsheets for 3 hours, running numbers. The conversation with the vendor's lawyer was brief. They wanted their money by Friday, or they'd proceed with seizure. I arranged a wire transfer for Thursday morning, $83,247. When I hung up, I found Liam standing in the doorway. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know. Then why?" I turned in my chair. "Because your sister is drowning, and I remember what that feels like." Liam crossed the room and pulled me close. "She doesn't deserve you." "Probably not," I agreed. "But you do." He kissed my forehead. "My parents really want to give you the lake house." "I don't want their lake house." "I know. That's why they want to give it to you." The next morning, I met Bridget at her boutique. She was packing up inventory, her movements mechanical. "The wire went through," I said from the doorway. She didn't look up. "Thank you. We need to talk about restructuring." "More conditions?" "A business plan," I corrected. "You're talented, Bridget. Your taste is impeccable, but you're terrible at managing money." She finally met my eyes. "And you're going to fix that?" "No," I said. "You are, with help." Over the next 3 hours, we went through her entire operation. The boutique was beautiful but inefficient. She was buying too much inventory, paying too much for rent, and her pricing strategy was incoherent. "You're trying to compete with department stores," I explained, "but your advantage is being local and curated. Charge more, buy less, focus on pieces that tell a story." Bridget listened, really listened. For the first time, she wasn't defensive or dismissive. "Why are you helping me?" she asked when we took a break. "Because Liam loves you, and I love Liam. That's it?" I thought about it. "And because I'm tired of being angry. It's exhausting." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry for what I said, for all of it." "I know. No, I mean it. I was jealous of you, of how much Liam loves you, of how easy everything seemed for you." I almost laughed. "Easy? You're successful, confident, beautiful. Liam looks at you like you hung the moon. I spent my whole life trying to be perfect and failing. Then you show up and everything just works." "It didn't just work," I said quietly. "I fought for every single thing I have. I watched my father die slowly while juggling 2 jobs. I slept in my car between shifts. I ate ramen for 2 years straight. Nothing about my life has been easy." Bridget was crying again. "I didn't know. You didn't ask." We sat in silence for a while. Outside, people walked past the boutique windows, oblivious to the war ending inside. "Can we start over?" Bridget asked finally. "We can start from here," I said. "I don't think we can erase the past, but we can choose what comes next." She nodded, wiped her eyes. "Okay, show me this business plan." 6 weeks later, the boutique had a soft reopening. Bridget had cut her inventory by 40%, raised prices by 25%, and started hosting small events for local designers. The place was packed. Liam's mother grabbed my arm. "This is wonderful, what you've done for her." "She did it," I said. "I just showed her the numbers." "Don't be modest." She told us everything. How you helped her restructure. How you're meeting weekly to review finances. I spotted Bridget across the room. She was laughing with a customer, her whole face bright. She looked happy. Actually, happy. Theo approached with champagne. "I have to admit," he said, "I thought you were destroying her. Turns out you were saving her." "She's saving herself," I corrected. "Still," he raised his glass. "Thank you for everything." "How's the consultant work going?" "Better than I expected. Your team is solid. And having a regular paycheck while I figure out my next move," he trailed off. "It's been good. Humbling, but good." "You'll land on your feet," I said. "You're smarter than you give yourself credit for." He looked surprised. "I thought you hated me." "I didn't hate you. I hated how you treated me." "There's a difference?" "A big one." Later that night, Liam and I were driving home when he said, "My parents called earlier. They're really going through with it." "With what?" "The lake house. They're having the deed transferred next week." I pulled over. "Liam? No, I don't want them to do that. It's already done. They want you to have it." "But Bridget told them to do it. She called Mom this morning and said if anyone deserves it, it's you." I sat back in shock. "She did? She said you saved more than her boutique. You saved her from drowning." He took my hand. "She's right. You did." The paperwork arrived the following Monday. The lake house was officially mine. 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch, private dock, the place where Liam's family had spent summers for 4 generations. I called Bridget immediately. "Hey," I said when she answered. "What were you thinking?" She laughed. "That I owed you a lot more than a house." "You didn't owe me anything." "Yes, I did. You gave me my life back. The house is just wood and nails. What you gave me is worth so much more. Your parents are happy. Trust me, they love you. And honestly, you'll actually take care of it. I would have sold it the first time I needed cash." I couldn't argue with that. "Besides," she continued, "I have a favor to ask." "Oh?" "I want to host Thanksgiving there this year, if that's okay. I want to make new memories in that place. Better ones." My throat tightened. "Yeah, that's okay." "Good. And I'm cooking. No charity cases allowed." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Deal." Thanksgiving came faster than I expected. I'd spent weeks getting the lake house ready. New paint, new furniture, fixing the dock. It was a labor of love. Liam's family arrived early afternoon. His parents brought pies. Theo brought wine. Bridget brought enough food for an army. "I might have overdone it," she admitted, staring at the overflowing kitchen. "Might have?" Theo teased. "There are 8 of us, and enough food for 50. Leftovers are a blessing," Liam's mother said firmly. "And this is our first Thanksgiving here. It should be special." We worked together to set the table. Real china. The fancy napkins, candles. When we finally sat down, Liam's father stood with his glass raised. "I want to make a toast." Everyone quieted. "Last Thanksgiving," he began, "I thought I knew my family. I thought I understood what we were, what we valued." His voice caught. I was wrong. He looked at me. You showed us what family really means. Not shared blood or shared history, but showing up, being there, sacrificing for people even when they don't deserve it. Bridget was crying. Theo, too. You saved our home multiple times. You saved Bridget's business. You gave Theo work when he'd lost everything. You did all of that despite having every reason to walk away. He raised his glass higher. To our daughter, because that's what you are. Our daughter. Liam's mother was sobbing openly now. I'm so proud to call you family. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Liam squeezed my hand under the table. To family, everyone said in unison. We ate until we couldn't move. The turkey was perfect. The stuffing divine. Bridget had outdone herself. Afterward, we moved to the porch. The sun was setting over the lake, painting everything gold and pink. I keep thinking about last year, Bridget said quietly. She was sitting next to me on the swing. About what I said. No, let me finish. She took a breath. I called you a charity case because I was terrified. Of you. Of how much better you were than me. That's not true. It is, though. You built something real. I was playing dress up with Daddy's money, pretending I was a businesswoman. You were actually doing it. You're doing it now, I pointed out. Because you showed me how. You could have destroyed me. Should have, honestly. But instead, she wiped her eyes. You saved me. In every possible way. You saved yourself. With your help. She turned to face me. I need you to know something. What I said last Thanksgiving. It wasn't about you. It was never about you. It was about me being terrified that I'd never be good enough. Good enough for what? For anything. For my family's expectations. For my own dreams. For life. She laughed sadly. Turns out, I was right. I wasn't good enough. Not until I stopped pretending and started being honest about what I didn't know. That takes more courage than pretending, does it? Ask me how many times I almost gave up. How many nights I cried myself to sleep because I had no idea what I was doing. Bridget looked shocked. But you always seem so confident. That's because you only saw the finished product. You didn't see the years of failure and fear and nearly giving up. We sat in silence, watching the lake turn dark. Thank you, Bridget said finally, for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. Inside, someone put on music. Theo was arguing with Liam about which football team was better. Liam's parents were dancing in the kitchen, swaying slowly to an old song. This was what family was supposed to feel like. 3 months after Thanksgiving, Bridget called me at 6 a.m. I knew immediately something was wrong. What happened? I asked, already getting out of bed. I got an offer. For the boutique. I paused. That's good news, right? It's from a developer. They want to tear it down and build condos. They're offering way above market value. How much? $300,000. I sat down hard. Bridget, I know. It's insane. But it means I could pay you back everything, with interest, and still have money left over to start fresh somewhere else. What do you want to do? Silence. Then, I don't know. The boutique is finally working. I'm finally making it work. But $300,000 is life-changing money. I finished. Yeah. When do they need an answer? End of the week. I looked at Liam. He was awake now, listening. He nodded at me. Come over tonight, I said. Let's go through the numbers together. She arrived at 7 with a folder full of documents. We spread everything across the dining room table. The offer, her current sales projections, her debt repayment schedule. If I take this, she said, I clear all my debts. I can pay you back completely. I can even help Theo get his next restaurant off the ground. But, Liam prompted, but I love that boutique. I love what we've built. For the first time in my life, I'm proud of something I did. Really did. Not just bankrolled. Then don't sell, I said simply. $300,000 is just money. Just money? Bridget laughed, says the person who has it. I have it because I chose work I loved over work that paid more. I could have gone corporate, made twice what I make now. But I wanted to build something mine. That's different. How? She couldn't answer. Liam leaned forward. Bridget, what would you do with $300,000? Pay back debts, help Theo, maybe travel, save the rest. And in 5 years, where would you be? She thought about it. Broke again, probably, knowing me. But if you keep the boutique, I said. In 5 years, you could have built something sustainable, something that lasts. Or I could fail and lose everything. You could. But you won't. How do you know? Because you're not the same person who took out that first loan. You've learned. You've changed. You're not running from problems anymore. Bridget stared at the offer letter. $300,000 in bold black numbers. I need more time, she said finally. Take it. I told her. This is your decision, no one else's. She spent the next 3 days in agony, called me hourly with new thoughts, new arguments. Theo told her to take the money. Liam's parents said follow her heart. Liam said he'd support whatever she chose. On Friday morning, she called. I'm turning it down. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She laughed. I think that's growth, right? Choosing the scary thing because it's what I really want. That's definitely growth. I called them this morning. They were shocked. Tried to raise the offer to $350. My stomach dropped. And I said no, because this isn't about money. It's about proving to myself that I can see something through, that I'm not just good at starting things and then abandoning them when they get hard. Pride swelled in my chest. I'm proud of you. Yeah? Yeah, that took real courage. Or real stupidity. Time will tell. But time proved her right. The boutique continued to grow. She expanded into online sales, started carrying local jewelry makers and artists, built a real community around the space. 6 months later, she hired her first employee, then her second, then her third. 1 year after turning down the offer, she'd paid back 40% of what she owed me. You know you don't have to rush this, I told her when she handed me a check. I want to, she said firmly. I need to. Why? Because then we're equals. Not debtor and creditor, not charity and charity case, just equals. I understood that, more than she knew. Fair enough, I said, taking the check. Besides, she added with a grin, I have something else to tell you. What? I'm getting married. I nearly dropped the check. What? To who? His name is Derek. We met at one of my events. He's a graphic designer, quiet, kind, nothing like the guys I used to date. When did this happen? We've been seeing each other for 8 months. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to make sure it was real first, that I wasn't just falling into old patterns. And it's real. He proposed last weekend at the lake house. On your dock, actually. Hope you don't mind. Of course not. Bridget, this is wonderful. She beamed. Will you be my maid of honor? The question hung in the air between us. Are you sure? I asked carefully. That's usually a sister or best friend. Yeah, but you're both. You're the sister I should have been to you from the start. My eyes filled with tears. I'd be honored. The wedding was small, 50 people at the lake house. Bridget wore simple white flowers in her hair. Derek looked at her like she was the only person in the world. When they said their vows, Bridget's voice cracked. You saw me when I couldn't see myself, when I was broken and lost and drowning in my own mistakes. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just loved me, exactly as I was. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. At the reception, Theo gave a speech. My sister has always been stubborn, proud, sometimes impossible. Everyone laughed. But this past year, I've watched her become someone different, someone better. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. He raised his glass. To Bridget and Derek, and to second chances. Later, Bridget pulled me aside. We walked down to the dock, drinks in hand. The sun was setting, just like last Thanksgiving. I keep thinking about that night, she said. When the deputy showed up, when I thought I'd lost everything. That feels like a lifetime ago. It does. But also yesterday. She took a sip. I wanted to hate you. It would have been so much easier to hate you. But you wouldn't let me. You just kept showing up, kept helping, kept refusing to be the villain I wanted you to be. I wasn't trying to be anything, just trying to survive your family. She laughed. Fair. We weren't great to you. You really weren't. I'm sorry, truly, for all of it. I know, and I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago. Why? I didn't deserve it. I thought about my dad, about those last days in the hospital, about how he'd forgiven everyone everything because he said life was too short for grudges, because holding on to anger was killing me, I said honestly, and because you're Liam's sister, and I love him, which means I had to find a way to love you too, even when I was awful, especially then. That's when people need love most. Bridget started crying, big, shoulder-shaking sobs. Hey, I said, pulling her close. It's your wedding day. You're supposed to be happy. I am happy, she managed through tears. I'm so grateful. For everything. For you. We stood there on the dock, holding each other while the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and red. 2 years later, Bridget asked me to meet her at the boutique. She had that look. The one that meant something big. Okay, what's going on? I asked when I arrived. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. For $94,000. That's everything, she said quietly. With interest. We're even. I stared at the check. It felt surreal. Bridget, this is... Don't. She held up a hand. Let me say something first. I closed my mouth. When you loaned me that first $47,000, I thought you were buying power over me. I thought you were going to hold it over my head forever. Use it to control me. I know. That's my point. You never did. You never once threw it in my face or made me feel small. You just helped. And then kept helping, even when I didn't deserve it. She sat down on the boutique counter. I've learned so much from you. About business, yeah. But more about being a person. About grace and generosity and what it means to really show up for people. You've worked so hard, I said. You built this. Not me. We built it, she corrected. Together. And now it's thriving. I have 3 locations. I'm profitable. I have a waiting list for my styling services. She smiled. I did that. But I couldn't have done it without you showing me how. I took the check, looked at all those zeros. This changes things, I said. You know that, right? How? Now we really are equals. We always were, Bridget said softly. I just couldn't see it. That night, Liam and I sat on our back porch. The check was on the table between us. You could invest it, he suggested. Grow the business even more. I could. Or we could take that trip to Italy you've always wanted. We could do that too. Or, he said slowly, we could give half to your mother's foundation. I looked at him. My mother had died when I was young. Cancer. Dad had started a small foundation in her name for cancer research. Half? I asked. Half. And use the other half to start a scholarship fund for kids who have to drop out of school to care for sick parents. Tears blurred my vision. You've been thinking about this. Every day since Bridget paid you back. You gave her and Theo second chances. Maybe it's time to give that gift to others who need it. The scholarship would need a name. We could call it the Second Chances Scholarship. Or the Charity Case Scholarship. He grinned. 2 on the nose? I laughed through tears. Maybe a little. We settled on the Grace Foundation Scholarship. Grace was my mother's name. It felt right. The announcement went out 3 months later. Full tuition for students who'd had to leave school due to family medical emergencies. We'd start with 10 scholarships. See where it went from there. The applications flooded in. Hundreds of them. Kids who'd put their lives on hold to care for dying parents, sick siblings, family members with no one else. Every single story broke my heart and put it back together. The selection committee met for 2 full days. We ended up funding 20 scholarships that first year, then 30 the next, then 50. Bridget donated a portion of her boutique profits. Theo too. Liam's parents set up a trust. What started as $47,000 for a desperate loan had transformed into something that would help hundreds of kids. 5 years after that first Thanksgiving, we gathered at the lake house again. But this time, the table was bigger. Bridget and Derek were there with their 2-year-old daughter. Theo had brought his new girlfriend. Liam's parents looked older but happier. And there were new faces too. 3 scholarship recipients we'd invited to join us. Their stories were raw and real and reminded me why we'd started this. When we sat down to eat, Liam's father stood again for a toast. 5 years ago, he began. I didn't know if our family would survive. We were fractured, hurting, lost. His voice was thick with emotion. But we had someone who refused to let us fall apart. Someone who showed us what real strength looks like. He looked at me. You've given us so much more than money or help or second chances. You've given us hope, purpose, a reason to be better. To family, everyone said. And to second chances. Later, after the dinner dishes were cleared and the kids were playing by the lake, Bridget found me in the kitchen. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. I was pregnant when the deputy showed up, that night at Mom and Dad's. I stopped washing the dish in my hands. What? 8 weeks. I didn't know yet. Found out 2 days later. She leaned against the counter. If you hadn't helped me, if I'd lost the boutique and spiraled, I don't know if I would have been strong enough to be a mother. Bridget? No, I mean it. I was in such a dark place. Drowning in debt and shame and self-hatred. Having a baby in that state. She shook her head. But you gave me something to hold on to. A reason to keep fighting. You did that yourself. With your help. Your belief in me when I didn't believe in myself. She took my hand. My daughter exists because you refused to let me give up. I wanted you to know that. I pulled her into a hug. This woman who'd called me a charity case, who'd made me feel small and unwanted, who'd become one of the most important people in my life. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, she whispered back. Sister. That night, lying in bed with Liam, I thought about how much had changed. How that overheard conversation in the bathroom had started a domino effect that had reshaped all of our lives. What are you thinking about? Liam asked sleepily. That sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Yeah? Yeah. If I hadn't heard what they said, if I hadn't gotten angry, if I hadn't decided to prove them wrong, I trailed off. We might not be here. We'd be somewhere, he said. But not here. Not this. Is this good? This life we've built? He pulled me closer. This is everything. The scholarship program continued to grow. By year 7, we were funding 100 students annually. Some went into medicine, others into business or law or teaching. Each one carried forward the gift they'd been given. One student, Patricia, became a hospice nurse. She sent me a letter on her graduation day. I watched my mom die when I was 17, she wrote. I had to drop out of school to care for her. Those months were the hardest of my life. But they taught me what really matters. Now I get to help other families through their hardest moments. Thank you for giving me the chance to turn my pain into purpose. I cried reading that letter, showed it to Bridget the next day at lunch. This is what we're doing, I said. Taking people's worst moments and helping them transform them into meaning. You started all of this, Bridget reminded me. No, your cruelty started this. My response just shaped it. She flinched. I deserved that. I didn't mean it as an attack, just the truth. Without that pain, I wouldn't have found this purpose. Does that make what I did okay? No, but it makes it useful. And maybe that's enough. We sat in comfortable silence. Outside, people walked past the boutique. Bridget's second and third locations were doing even better than the first. She'd become a fixture in the local business community, a mentor to young entrepreneurs. I got asked to speak at a women's business conference, she mentioned casually. That's amazing. What's the topic? From failure to success, how to rebuild after rock bottom. I grinned. Poetic. I'm terrified. You'll be brilliant. Just tell them the truth. The truth is messy. The truth is real. That's what people need to hear. She gave the speech 3 weeks later. I sat in the front row as she told her story. Every mistake, every failure, every moment she'd wanted to give up. I was drowning, she said to the crowd of 300 women. Drowning in debt and pride and the belief that asking for help meant admitting defeat. She talked about the loan, about me showing up with a check and conditions, about how humiliating it felt to need someone I'd treated so poorly. But here's what I learned, she continued. Pride isn't strength. Pride is fear wearing a mask. Real strength is admitting you need help. Real strength is accepting that help with grace and then doing the work to change. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. My sister-in-law didn't save me. She gave me the tools to save myself. She believed in me when I didn't believe in me. And that belief, that's the real gift. Standing ovation. 5 minutes of applause. Afterward, women lined up to talk to her, to share their own stories of failure and rebuilding. Bridget stood there for 2 hours hugging strangers and offering advice. I think you found your calling, I told her on the drive home. What do you mean? Helping other women, sharing your story, being honest about the messy parts? She considered this. I've been thinking about starting a mentorship program through the boutique. Pair established businesswomen with women just starting out. Do it. Yeah? Absolutely. You have so much to offer. She launched the program 6 months later. 20 mentors, 40 mentees. It grew every year. Women who'd almost given up found support and guidance. Some went on to start their own businesses. Others joined established companies in leadership roles. Bridget called it the Second Chances Mentorship Program. When I asked why, she smiled. Because everyone deserves one, including me. Year 10 brought a surprise. Liam's parents called a family meeting at the lake house. Everyone gathered, confused about why. We're retiring, Liam's dad announced. Selling the family business. Shocked silence. We're not getting any younger, his mother added. And we want to enjoy our retirement while we still can. What about the company? Theo asked. You've built that for 40 years. We're selling to a competitor. Good people. They'll take care of our employees. When? Liam asked. Paperwork finalizes next month. More silence. The family business had been their identity for decades. We want to do something with the money, his dad continued. Something meaningful. He pulled out papers. Legal documents. We're establishing a family foundation. Equal board seats for all of you. The goal is to continue and expand the work you've started with the scholarship program. I couldn't breathe. What? You showed us what real legacy looks like, his mother said, her eyes on me. Not businesses or property, but changed lives. We want to be part of that. The foundation launched with $12 million in initial funding. We added programs for healthcare access, housing assistance, and mental health services for caregivers. The first year, we helped 500 families. The second year, 1 to 200. By year 5, we were operating in 6 states. Bridget ran the business mentorship arm. Theo managed operations. Liam handled legal issues. His parents did fundraising. I oversaw strategy and program development. We met monthly to review applications and make decisions. What had started as a fractured, hurt family had become a team dedicated to helping others. One day, during a particularly long meeting, Bridget's phone rang. She stepped out to answer it, then came back looking pale. That was the mayor's office, she said quietly. They want to give us an award for community service. That's wonderful, Liam's mother said. There's more. They want to name a street after the foundation, Grace Foundation Way. Everyone turned to look at me. I don't know what to say, I managed. Say yes, Liam said firmly. Your mother would be proud. The dedication ceremony happened on a crisp fall morning. The new street sign gleamed in the sunlight. Grace Foundation Way. The mayor gave a speech about impact and legacy and community. Bridget spoke about transformation. Theo about second chances. Liam about love that refuses to quit. When it was my turn, I stood before the crowd of supporters, volunteers, scholarship recipients, and family. I don't have a prepared speech, I admitted, because I never imagined something like this would happen. Not to me. I looked at Bridget, at Theo, at Liam's parents. 10 years ago, I overheard 2 people calling me a charity case. Those words hurt. They made me feel small and worthless and less than. I paused. But they also woke something up in me. A determination to prove them wrong, to show them who I really was. Bridget was crying. So was Liam's mother. What I didn't realize then was that proving myself wasn't about making them feel bad. It was about finding my purpose, about taking pain and transforming it into something good. I gestured to the street sign. My mother's name is on this street, but it's not just about her. It's about everyone who has ever felt less than. Everyone who's been dismissed or underestimated or called names that hurt. My voice strengthened. This street is for every scholarship recipient who thought their dreams were over. For every mentee who believed she couldn't succeed. For every family who's losing someone they love and doesn't know how they'll survive. The crowd was silent. This street is proof that your worst moment doesn't define you. That grace and second chances can change everything. That love really does win. Standing ovation. Longer than Bridget's at the conference. People weren't just clapping, they were celebrating. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me. Early 20s, eyes bright with intelligence. I'm Destiny, she said. I was one of your first scholarship recipients. 7 years ago. I remember. You were pre-med. Her face lit up. I just finished my residency. I'm starting as an attending physician next month at Children's Hospital. Pride swelled in my chest. That's incredible. I want to establish an endowment, she continued, to fund more scholarships, give back what was given to me. You don't have to, I know, but I want to, because someone believed in me when I had nothing. Now I want to believe in someone else. This was the moment. The realization that what we'd started had taken on a life of its own, that it would continue long after we were gone. We'd be honored, I told her. The endowment from Destiny was just the beginning. Other recipients came forward, pledging money, time, skills. The foundation grew beyond anything we'd imagined. By year 15, we'd helped over 10,000 people, changed 10,000 lives, prevented 10,000 dreams from dying. Bridget was now running a national mentorship network with chapters in 30 cities. Theo had opened a consultation firm that helped struggling restaurants turn profitable, with proceeds funding the foundation. Liam's parents had become sought-after speakers on philanthropic strategy. And me? I'd stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on long-term vision and speaking engagements about transforming pain into purpose. One evening, Liam and I were walking through the neighborhood. We passed Grace Foundation Way. The street was lined with small plaques, each bearing the name of a scholarship recipient and their current profession. Look at all of this, Liam said softly. Everything that came from one overheard conversation. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd confronted them that night, instead of walking away and planning? All the time, he admitted. A screaming match. Hurt feelings. Maybe a permanent family split. Instead, we got, I gestured at the plaques, at the lives changed, at the legacy built. We got grace, Liam finished. In every sense of the word. 20 years after that first Thanksgiving, we gathered at the lake house for what had become an annual tradition. But this time, there were 40 people instead of 8. Bridget's family had grown to 4 kids. Theo had finally settled down with his restaurant consultant girlfriend, and they had twins. Liam and I had adopted 2 children, siblings who'd lost their parents in a car accident. And surrounding us were scholarship recipients, their families, mentees, volunteers, people whose lives had been touched by what we'd built. The dinner table stretched the entire length of the porch. Platters of food covered every surface. Children ran and played. Adults swapped stories and laughed. Before we ate, Liam's father stood. He was older now, grayer, but his eyes were bright. 20 years ago, I almost lost my family, not to death or disaster, but to pride, to cruelty, to failing to see what really mattered. His voice wavered. My daughter Bridget said terrible things about my daughter-in-law. My son Theo stood by and said nothing. I allowed a culture in this family that valued money and status over character. The table was silent. But Grace found us anyway, in the form of a woman who should have walked away, who should have cut us out of her life completely. Instead, she stayed. She fought. She loved us better than we deserved. He raised his glass, tears streaming down his face. To Grace. To second chances. To the family we chose to become instead of the family we were. To Grace, everyone echoed. After dinner, I found Bridget down by the dock. She was watching her oldest daughter play in the water. Hi, I said, sitting beside her. Hi yourself. Good dinner. The best. She smiled. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. Feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time. Do you remember exactly what I said? That Thanksgiving? I'd never told her the full details. Just that I'd overheard something hurtful. You said Liam could have done better. That I didn't finish college. That I was his charity project. She flinched. God, I was such a... You were scared. I interrupted gently. Scared and drowning and lashing out. I get it now in a way I didn't then. Does it still hurt? Hearing it? I considered this honestly. Sometimes, but mostly it just feels like it happened to someone else. A different version of me. A version that didn't know how strong she was. Maybe. Or a version that hadn't learned that strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about what you do with the hurt. Bridget leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, my sister, my friend, my savior. I love you too. And I'm not your savior. Just someone who refused to let you drown. Same thing. Not really. A savior does it for you. I made you do the work yourself. She laughed. Fair point. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the lake. This place that had seen so much pain and healing, so much transformation. Do you ever wonder what your dad would think? Bridget asked. About all of this? My throat tightened. I thought about Dad every day. His lessons about forgiveness, about working hard, about building something that matters. I think he'd be proud, I said quietly. Not of what we built, but of how we built it. With grace instead of revenge. With love instead of anger. He raised an amazing daughter. He raised a daughter who learned that being amazing means helping others be amazing too. As we walked back to the house, I saw my children playing with Bridget's children. Theo's twins were trying to teach Liam's nephews how to skip stones. Liam's parents were holding court with scholarship recipients, sharing stories and wisdom. This was family, not because of blood, but because of choice, because of forgiveness, because of second chances and third chances and fourth chances, because someone decided that grace was stronger than revenge, that love was stronger than hurt, that who we become matters more than who we were. The lake house lights glowed warm in the darkness. Inside, someone was playing guitar, voices raised in song, laughter echoing across the water. You know what's funny? I said to Bridget as we climbed the porch steps. What? That night, when you called me a charity case, you weren't entirely wrong. She stopped. What do you mean? I was a charity case. To your family, to Liam, to everyone who helped me when Dad was sick. I smiled. But that wasn't an insult. It was just the truth. We're all charity cases. We all need help sometimes. And we all deserve grace sometimes? Exactly. Even when we don't deserve it at all. We stepped inside to rejoin the party, to rejoin our family. The one we'd almost destroyed and then rebuilt into something stronger. The one that proved that sometimes the worst things said become the catalyst for the best things built. That charity, in all its forms, is never a weakness. It's the bravest thing we can offer, and the most transformative thing we can receive. 20 years from a bathroom door, from an overheard insult, from a decision to respond with grace instead of vengeance. 20 years of building something that would outlive us all. Grace Foundation Way and Deep.